Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio, and yes, the title is correct. James Bond is getting canceled. This article from Variety. James Bond novels edited to remove racist content. After the Roald Dahl text editing controversy that erupted in recent days, it is now the turn of Ian Fleming's James Bond novels to be rewritten. A reporter in the UK newspaper The Telegraph reveals that ahead of the reissue of the Bond novels in April 2023, to mark 70 years of Casino Royale, the first book in the series, rights holders Ian Fleming Productions Limited commissioned a review by sensitivity readers. Boy, that's going to end very fucking well. Each book will carry the disclaimer, quote, "This book was written at a time when terms and attitudes which might be considered offensive by modern readers were commonplace. A number of updates have been made in this edition while keeping as close as possible to the original text and the period in which it is set, the Telegraph said. A commonly used pejorative term used for black people by Fleming, whose Bond books were published between 1951 and 1966, has been removed almost entirely and replaced with black person or black man. In other instances, references have been edited. For example, in Live and Let Die, originally published in 1954 and was made into a movie in 73 with Roger Moore. It was Roger Moore's very first outing. Bond's opinion of Africans in the gold and diamond trades as, quote-unquote, pretty law-abiding chaps I should have thought, except when they've drunk too much, has been altered to, quote, pretty law-abiding chaps I should have thought. Another scene in the book, set during a striptease at a Harlem nightclub, was originally, quote, Bond could hear the audience panting and grunting like pigs at the trough. He felt his own hands gripping the tablecloth. His mouth was dry. This has been revised to, quote, Bond could sense the electric tension in the room. A segment in the book describing accidental dialogue as straight Harlem Deep South with a lot of New York thrown in has been removed. In several of the books, including Thunderball, published in 1961, Quantum of Solace, published in 1960, and Goldfinger, published in 1959, ethnicities have been removed. The edits to the U.S. edition of Live and Let Die were authorized by Fleming himself. Fleming died in 1964. Ian Fleming Publications told The Telegraph, quote, we at Ian Fleming Publications reviewed the text of the original Bond books and decided our best course of action was to follow Ian's lead. We have made changes to Live and Let Die that he himself authorized. Following Ian's approach, we looked at the instance of several racial terms across the books and removed a number of individual words or else swapped them for terms that are more accepted today, but in keeping with the period in which the books were written. We encourage people to read the books for themselves when the new paperbacks are published in April. Variety's reached out to Ian Fleming Publications for comment. The James Bond films are one of the most successful franchises of all time, grossing a combined $7.8 billion. I think that's worldwide. The last film, No Time to Die, which released in 2021, marked the retirement of Daniel Craig from the role. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and just say this, okay? Don't get outraged. Don't get all riled up, because in my opinion, this is exactly what they want you to do. This is exactly what who's the company? Ian Fleming This is exactly what Ian Fleming Publications wants you to do, and I will give you a perfect example. Just 3 days before the recording of this video, on February 24th, news came out that Penguin is to publish the classic Roald Dahl books after censorship backlash. Publisher Penguin Random House said Friday it will publish quote-unquote classic unexpurgated versions of Roald Dahl's children's novels after it faced a backlash over its plan to cut and rewrite sections of his books with the intention of making them suitable for modern readers. The new editions, which remove passages related to weight, mental health, gender, and race, will appear along with reprints of 17 of Dahl's books in their original form later, with the latter branded as quote-unquote the Roald Dahl Classic Collection, so readers will be free to choose which version of Dahl's stories they prefer. Right? Would Penguin Random House Publishing put out those books if they felt that there wasn't money to be made? Right? Everybody got up in arms, and rightfully so, about excuse me. Everybody got up in arms, and rightfully so, about God damn it. Wrong pipe. You know, people were up in arms, and rightfully so. I know I've said this 3 times now, right? But you know, they got up in arms, and rightfully so, about the censorship of Roald Dahl, because, you know, hey, you know, ideas that were acceptable 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago, sure, they're not acceptable today. But why are you going back and pulling a Big Brother in 1984 and, you know, just straight up changing the words of the original text? It doesn't make any sense. And I remember when they did that with Dr. Seuss, where I think they pulled like 17 or 18 of his books completely from sale, and they're not putting them back out. And people were giving him the idea of, hey, if you genuinely feel guilty about the fact that these books exist, why don't you just make them public domain, and then the people that want to publish them can publish them, and then everybody has access to this. But to tie this back to James Bond being canceled, and the idea of don't get outraged and don't get whipped up into a frenzy, because this is exactly what they want. You're seeing it with Roald Dahl right now. What I bet Ian Fleming Publications Limited are looking to do is put out the news that they are going to alter the original books to fit with a quote-unquote modern audience, to then just come out a few days later and announce that there will be classic editions that are unaltered that will also appear side by side. Because remember, in this world, boys and girls, money talks and bullshit walks. If they see an opportunity to make a shit ton of money by releasing these classic editions alongside the edited works, and they could potentially make more money than they would have prior, because you got all up in arms when you probably shouldn't have. In all honesty, you could probably find ebook versions of the classic texts, and I'm not referring to finding them on Amazon, if you catch my drift. You know, yo ho ho, pirate's life for me. So, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult to go out there and basically crack down on all of these, you know, ebook versions of these original texts, because, you know, in order to shut down a torrent site, you would have to basically, not a torrent site, in order to basically shut down torrenting forever, you would have to break every single computer on the planet. But make no mistake, in my opinion, I think Ian Fleming Productions Limited is doing this solely to make more money by these re-releases, right? Generate some controversy by saying we are going to edit some of these works, then wait a few days, wait until all of you get good and mad, and then they're going to come out with, oh, but we're going to provide classic editions alongside it, so you can buy it there. And they make millions upon millions of dollars more because of all the stupid and gullible people that got whipped up into a fucking frenzy over this. And I know the vast majority of you are probably going to go out there and buy those classic editions if they do exist, to quote unquote send the message, but they make money irregardless. So just keep that in mind before going out and rushing to buy these quote-unquote classic editions that may get announced within a few days. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this right here, because I think I dragged this out way longer than it needs to be. And I know I retreaded over myself so many times in this video, but I needed to get all these points across. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos, so I will just see you guys next time.